it is Thursday, and guess what? We made it. One more week in the books of 2021. Can you believe we're in the middle of May already? It's crazy. We're in Vegas, and it's hot in a mug. About to get even hotter in a mug out here in the Southwest. Listen, normally at this time, I would be joined by my partner, Ralph Velez. Ralph has got something really interesting cooking. As you know, he is the in-ring announcer for Mayweather Promotions. They're getting ready for Floyd's big exhibition. One of them Paul brothers, I think it's Logan. I get them fools mixed up sometimes. It is Logan Paul, but they're filming today. So Ralph may pop in, he may not pop in, but regardless, I'm Sonia Cruzino, your the Sports Niece, saying, hey, guess what? That's something really, really unique and special for you today. Let me just go ahead and get stuff set up. I don't want this water here to fall on my stuff. We have invited someone who has done a lot of work putting together one of the stories in boxing that I have seen in quite some time. He is Dannon Green, who's like a comedian, trainer, boxer. So the producer and director of a documentary called The Executioners. And let me bring them on out so we can talk a little bit about it. Let's see.
Hello. Hello. How do I sound? Do I sound okay?
You sound good. You sound good, man. How you doing, Dannon?
I am doing wonderful, and I apologize for not shaving, but I was going.
Oh, well, look, I didn't shave my beard either. It don't grow in no more, though.
Well, I don't think no problem.
We get you were golfing today. Did you do a full 18, or what did you do?
I did a full 18 today with some buddies of mine, and I played actually pretty well. So I'm excited. I had a good round today.
Okay, good for you. My son, the little boy, is 8, and he actually has a unique swing. I keep saying it's unique.
We got a LeBron swing out.
No, not that fool. But we play with sticks over here. He does take taekwondo and golf. The little girl is doing tennis because you know what? We're trying to set up these scholarships here. So
I understand.
I'm a big fan. But we have you on to talk about something really unique. As I said, you are let me put the credits in order: producer, director, writer of a really interesting documentary that you can find on Tubi. Tubi is an app you can download on any smart device, your phone, your TVs, your iPads, whatever have you. It's called The Executioners. So before we actually get into the actual film, I want to know a little bit about your background, where your grandmama stayed, where your mom stayed, and where you come from, and how'd you actually get to putting this film together?
Okay, well, thank you very much first for having me. I'm just been excited about this since you called to interview me, and I was just like, okay, we're starting to make it. You know what I mean? I grew up, I was born in New York and raised in Philadelphia. I'm an active kid. I'm a foster child.
Okay.
I grew up in the foster system. Yeah, never knew my maternal mom, and I was adopted at the age of 7. And then my adopted mom died when I was 15. And I've been on my own since 17 years of age, but I did pretty good. I put myself through my last year of high school, 4 years of college, and 2 years of grad school. I went to Ohio State University. So education, I've been through a lot. And I'm kind of giving you that background because, as you know, the documentary is a story of guys that have had a very interesting background and had opportunities to try to take advantage of it and didn't. So anyway, while I was living in Philadelphia, before my mom passed, I started boxing. And the gym that I boxed at was called The Executioners. They were located in West Philadelphia. And so I started boxing. Excuse me?
Born
and raised. I can't get rid of it. I'm gonna start saying North Philly so they can't say it. But I grew up in West Philly, and then I went to a friend, my 2 buddies, 2 of my best friends, to box. I actually didn't know they boxed. When you're kids, you never share anything outside of you your family life. You know what I mean? You go to school, you play, and then whatever you home, you just kind of do. So I happened to catch my buddies one day walking to the gym, and I asked them where they were going. They're like, we're going to the boxing gym. I'm like, why did you ever tell me y'all go? And they're like, we don't know. And so I ran home and I asked my mom, could I box? And she told me I couldn't. And for 3 days, she didn't allow me to box. And then when she came and said, oh, you can box, but I hope you get hurt. So I guess she didn't really want me to box at
She
the
just
time.
wanted you to get up out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Had you had a lot of fights,
was,
like in and around the neighborhood, or street fights? Or
yes, I was actually. I fought a lot. Yeah. Elementary school, I fought a lot. Around my block, I fought. When I started going to junior high school, I kind of slowed down because that's when guys would start using weapons, and I wasn't into weapons. So I ain't trying to get stabbed or shot. So I was like, all right, you know what, my man? You know what I'm saying? So my mom let me box, and then I wound up staying, and my buddies quit, and I wound up becoming really all of them. Like I in 1981, I came in second in the Junior Olympics in the city of Philadelphia. I won first, but I lost in the championship fight. And then I didn't box for a while, like I said, because when my mom died, I had to move. And I moved around 4 high schools and just had a real unstable, high school years. And then I went to college, and I took up the boxing game again. I took it up again. My junior year in college. I went to college in Davenport, Iowa.
Oh, how'd you get to Iowa?
I did my undergrad. I went to a small school, and a little bit about my educational background. I'm the first African American in the country ever to get an undergraduate degree in computer graphics and a master's in computer animation.
Oh, wow.
I went to the for my master's, and I went to a school called Marycrest College in Davenport, Iowa, for my undergrad. And they were the first school to offer a degree in that field. So I'm the first to be accepted in their program and to graduate. So while I was in undergrad in college, I started boxing at the Davenport Boxing Club. Now this is significant because when I was training, I had one fight, but I was just training. I had one who former world champions from that town. Michael second to none. So Michael was coming back to fight, and he had most of his heavy sparring out here in LA. So they needed a left-hand sparring partner with Mike to throw punches at him to keep him sharp for the week.
You're southpaw.
So I sparred fighting Cecil Pettigrew, who was a southpaw. So I sparred Michael Nunn for 2 days, and people was like, man, you're pretty good. Even though Mike didn't go fully out on me, I still showed that I had skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, maybe I should, keep doing it because there's not going to be anyone in amateurs as good as this dude. You know what I mean? So I wound up running off 12 straight wins and 2 Golden Glove tournaments. I won the novice, and then I won the Open in Charleston, Virginia, and then wound up moving to LA to pursue my educational degree and got into entertainment, and that's how I got into entertainment. And then I'm a stand-up by trade, as you know. Most people know me from doing stand-up.
How do you get from the technical side? That's it's literally 2 different sides of your brain, right? The technical and the creative side. Like, how did you get into stand-up? I mean, especially in those days when you started, opportunities were not like what they are now.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I always been kind of
90s, not that, at 90s things were starting to change a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happened was when I was in college from 84 through 88, I was always the life of the party in undergrad and in grad school. So people used to always tell me I was funny, but to be honest with you, I always wanted to be a businessman. That was my goal. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember the old Ebony magazine. They used to have the black man on the back of it with the beard and the Cavassier glass, and I was like, I want to be him. You know what I mean? So I always wanted to be a businessman. And what happened was, my buddies used to always tell me that, man, you're a funny guy, So what happened was, one day in grad school, my buddy Joey D. Williams from Dayton, Ohio, he came late to the club that we used to hang out every Friday night after class. So he said, he came late. And I said, why you late? We said, Joey, why you late? And he go, oh, me and Tasha his girlfriend and now wife, said we went to a comedy club, and then out of nowhere he just said, you know what, Dannon, man, you funnier than those guys I saw. You should be a comedian. That's what he said to me, and I blew him off. When I'm telling you, I blew him off. I was like, man, you know, like shut up, because I was wanting to be a businessman. I blew it off. Didn't say anything else. That was 1989. So I went through grad school. I graduated from Ohio State, and one day I'm driving down the street and I see on the marquee it said open mic night, and I just said, everybody keeps saying you
Which
funny.
club was that?
It was a club in Columbus, Ohio. It was like a bar, you know, like they just had like comedy, open mic. I don't know what it was. So
for people who don't know, open mic night, how does a comedian actually get on stage?
Well, the funny thing about open mic there was I went to the place to sign up. They only had 8 spots, but they had 16 comedians there that night trying to get on. So you had to put your name in the hat. And then if they drew your name out, then you were one of the comics that performed. So I happened to get my name drawn that night, the first time. And I wondered to this day, if my name didn't drawn that night, would I even be talking to you right now? You know what I mean? Because I might have never went to stage. Yeah. So they drew my name, and the first time I'm ever on stage, I get second place in a comedy competition.
Nice.
And yeah, so I was like, oh man, you know, so you kind of get bit a little bit because it's like instant response.
Some
and
affirmation.
Yes. And all the comedians that were there were like, who are you? Like nobody knew who I was. You know what I mean? And
you're like, shit, I don't know who I am yet. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, you're right. And the crazy thing about it, which is significant, is I started in white clubs. So like I was the only black comic there. They all were white comics. So I didn't curse. I didn't do, you know, I curse now, but I started clean. So what happened was then they had a competition called the funniest person in Ohio. And whoever won it to tour all of the southern part of Ohio. So I entered it. And it was a 6-week competition and I won it.
Wow. And how come it was 6 weeks? Was it like each week they kind of whittled it down and then finally it was a championship?
Yes. And I made it to the final 3 or 4 and I won it. So after the win, I think you won like $100 and then you had like 5 shows. But $100 in 1991 is a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, gas
was something that you won.
Yeah, I mean, gas was only at 80 cents a gallon at that time, whatever. You know what I mean? So what happened was I went to the bar after the competition, and there was these 2 white girls, two white women sitting there who had been there, and she said to me, "Do you know why you won?" I was like, "No." She said, "Everybody wanted to hear." Each week I would come back with new material, and everybody wanted just to hear what I had to say because it was always so funny. And then from there, that was it. I got bit by the bug, and I started doing stand-up.
You've been doing commercials and TV and a few other things too. Like you really have been working in entertainment. So John Moody, a fellow comedian friend of yours, is saying hello. I keep telling folks, you know, so I am the sportsnista, I am the technista. If I could actually see the button, I literally can't see it without my glasses. I'd actually put his comments up there.
He says, hey.
He says, hey, okay, you can see it. All right, cool. So let's get back to kind of, you know, the boxing story, because you have really, the Executioners became they were a band of misfits that became a band of brothers along the way. And you know, there's some dysfunction, but somehow you still have that connective tissue. So take me to Philadelphia. Where's the gym at?
Well, the gym was located on 60th and Vine in West Philadelphia, which was about 4 blocks up from Market Street, which 4 blocks from when you started going to Southwest Philly. And that was kind of the line at that time when we were there, that we were a gang called the Moon Gang, which you saw in my documentary. That was their turf. And then I was from a place called the Hilltop Hustlers. So what happened was we did have beef at that time. There was some beef going on between the Hilltop and the Southwest guys in terms of area. But for some reason, the gym was always a safe haven. We had guys from Southwest here, and then we had guys Hilltop that boxed there. So we all kind of knew each other. You know what I mean? So, and then some of these guys also went to Overbrook High School. So people from Southwest would go to Brook. So it all kind of meshed. And these 2 men, Frank and Tucci, and Frank Taylor, Tucci Gordon, they started the gym because they were trying to get the boys off the street from gang violence. Because in the 70s, there was a lot of gang violence going on in Philadelphia. And this documentary shows you that all of these guys that you saw in the documentary started, like, there was nobody that like came from another joined us. You know what I'm saying? So they all, the record you saw, which was 639 wins and 84 losses, they all started 0-0 gym.
Yeah, so let's just say that again. So this gym, actually, with all of the young men fighting in various weight classes and various tournaments, they had 639 wins and 84 losses.
639 wins, 84 losses over a 10-year period, 1974 through 84, 86. So 10, 12 years, really 80, 76, but the gym opened up in 74, but they really didn't start really getting moving to 76. So over a 10-year period, 74, 75 to 84, 85, they had that that streak. And we had 6 guys invited to the
That's a hell of a stretch, dude, because there's a lot of gyms right now that got pros in it. Folks who you might be seeing on TV who ain't got that kind of stretch.
No. And the crazy thing about it is, over that span, we had 6 guys invited to the Olympic trials. 76, 80, which we boycotted, and 84.
Right.
And then we had one world champion who was Gary Hinn. So the gym was started, and the uniqueness about the documentary and how that came about is the gym dissolved like in 2001 or 2. Okay, because Marvin Tucci Gordon died in 1996, which I had not known. I didn't know he had died. Then I found out that he had died.
How'd you find out?
Well, I found out because I went back to do a comedy show at a place called Warm Daddies in Philadelphia. And when I went there, one of the guys that's in the documentary, Lydell Johnson, came to my show. So we were teammates, and I said, "Hey, Lydell, what's going on?" And then we got to talk. I said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "Well, yeah, Tucci passed a number of years ago." And I said, "Well, is Frank still alive?" He says, "Oh, Frank is still alive." I said, "Oh, man." So I wound up talking to another fighter, Sean Clark, who's also in the documentary, and he said he had Frank's information. So he gave me Frank's number, right? Because this is back in 2017 when I went back for the show. So what happened was, that was in August of 2017. I waited till like September, early October of 2017 to give him a call. So when I called him, I said, "Hey, Frank, how you doing?" I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't even say it like that, because I hadn't talked to the man in over 30 years. So I go, "Yes, is Frank Taylor there?" And he was always cool. He said, "Yes, this is Frank Taylor." And I said, "Hey, Frank, this is Dannon Green. I used to box for you when I was a kid." And he goes, "Dannon Green, Southpaw, Felton Street. Yeah, good fighter. I remember you." And I almost cried. Because, for somebody to remember you and where you live and everything. And, when I moved out of Philly, I was 15 years old when I moved out, when my mom died. So I got to talking to him. He was telling me everything was going on. And that was it. And I hung up. And what happened was, I was laying in bed in LA, and I go, "Somebody's got to tell this story." I said, "Somebody has to tell this story." So I said, because when he dies, and he was he was 80, I think, 79, 80 at that time. I go, I hate to say it, but I'm like, that goes with him. And so everybody, nobody really
similar with families. Like, people don't think about this even in their own, like, kind of, nuclear families. Like, the stories eventually they evaporate because people forget. People get older, they move on, and then people start dying. This is a different type of family that you had. This was, your boxing family. You got out early. You were 15 years old. You had to move, and you actually went on to college. There's several men in this documentary who just weren't as fortunate. They stayed in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood came to get them. And I'm thinking specifically about Mike Wells. Right, Mike was somebody in the story. Lydell as well. And also, we have the Knicks as well, who got caught up for a minute.
Yes.
Bob Nix in his story, it has a happier ending.
Yes.
Actually, we'll get to that. But were you hearing the stories, like as you were thinking, like, I need to put this together, were you surprised at all to see the journey and where it was taking some of the men who you knew in your teens? Or were you or did it make sense given the area and what was going on in the environment?
Well, I was surprised, but I wasn't, because when you're from a particular area and you're in it, everything looks normal to you. If a guy gets caught for robbing a bank or, robbing a store or shoplifting, you're like, yo, he just got caught. You know what I mean? You don't look at it as something like I would now, like dramatically, like, oh my God. Or if you find somebody that sells drugs, because I knew a lot of drug dealers, you know what I mean? So in terms of Mike and these guys, Lydell and Bob and everyone, it was surprising because I didn't know. Once I moved, I would be in touch with, I was in touch with Mike a little bit, but once I went to college from '84, I was out of that. I wasn't around.
And Facebook wasn't a thing. There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram.
No, right, right.
You weren't catching up with people, even on the low, like just peeping on their page, see what they're doing. It wasn't a thing for you. Who was the person in the gym? Were there 7 of you in the execution?
No, there was more of us, but the story is based around 8 to 9 fighters. About 6 to 7, 8 to 9 fighters. But Michael Wells and Mike is older than me, and he was kind of like my old head. Like, I would go out to the gym with him, and then we got closer. Then I would, you saw a picture of him in the documentary, of him and I at his house. You know what I mean? And so what people don't know is I actually started boxing right-handed, but I'm left-handed when I shoot basketball or when I write. So when I started boxing, I kept hearing that southpaws gave orthodox fighters more trouble. So since I was already a left-handed person, I converted myself to southpaw, and I did that a lot by working. I would go outside his house and I would work on shadow boxing and working left-handed. So he had a big significant part to do with my boxing career early in the game.
Okay. So you talk with Mike Wells. He's one of kind of the significant characters who carries the story on. Bob Nix was also a fascinating one to me, because you could kind of see. So listen, there are very few boxers ever that you will meet who end up pursuing boxing because they really, really chose it. A lot of times they're fighting to get out of something. Whether it's going on in the neighborhood or like they just didn't have no other choices. And this is a place where they went to sleep, to eat, often, or take a shower, because there was just nothing, especially if you talk to fighters who came out of Mexico, for instance. Many times I've heard conversations where they're like, hey, I would sleep on the side of a building and I would wait for the gym to open up. But when I look at somebody like Bob Nix, who had 3 boys, 2 who got caught up, similarly to how he got caught up, and 1 who didn't, who really kind of surpassed his wildest dreams. And you're going to have to watch the documentary to see who Bob Nix's youngest boy is and what he was able to do with his life. Have you talked with Bob kind of after things turned around for him?
Oh, well, I talked to Bob after the funny thing is, a lot of the guys I had not been in contact with. I wasn't in contact with a lot of these guys outside of Lydell until I was ready to do the documentary. So, but even with Bob's story, I kept hearing the name, but I was like, that can't be him. And then when I talked to Bob and went to his house to interview him, because I interviewed Bob in 2 different places. I interviewed him in Philadelphia, and then I went down to North Carolina and interviewed him at the house. And when I got there and I saw the pictures of who his son is, I go, whoa. And then that story came out. And this story is, I'm not saying this because I did it, but you being somebody that's into sports will know what I'm about to say. To me, first of all, this is the first boxing documentary ever about a team. You can Google, you can YouTube. There has never been a boxing documentary about a team from the start up. None. Most boxing documentaries have been from an individual fight, a fighter, an incident, or the only team one that they really kind of had was one over in, I think, Ireland, where these kids all got together who already boxed and joined this man who was trying to advance them in the tournament. But never about kids that started at 8, 9, 10 years old, all coming up.
It's definitely a different perspective. We are talking with Dannon Green, who is the producer, director, and writer of a documentary called The Executioners. You can find it on Tubi, download it on any smart device that you have. It's about a little over 90 minutes long, and really interesting, fascinating. There's several stories that are woven in as these two men kind of allowed these young boys a place to go to stay out of trouble, if not for a couple of hours, and learn a skill and develop friendships along the way. You've also won some awards. You've been in some film festivals, and how's that going for you? Are you looking for more festivals?
Yeah, I was accepted into 11 film festivals, and I won awards in 2. Docs Without Borders. And then there was I won awards in LA, not LA, but Southern California. I won awards of recognition, and then I won one of the best documentary awards. I also got accepted into, which I'm very happy. I got accepted into the Manhattan Film Festival, which is a big one, and national and worldwide, I was accepted into, which I'm very, very happy, the African Film Academy Film Festival out in Nigeria, which is the big film festival that they have over in Lagos, Nigeria.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, you've been a one-man show. You put all this film together. You did have an editor. But you've written the story. You're out here kind of, making sure that people know where it is. You get the Tubi deal and stuff. But in many respects, even though we see a fighter in there and it's mano a mano or woman versus woman, there are a lot of team elements that are part of boxing too. Like nobody gets there on their own.
No.
Who were some of the other kind of like ancillary figures that people just don't know who are important in a boxing gym?
Well, the first of all, in the gym, and especially in boxing, and you got to remember, in that time, it's not being disrespectful. It's just that women didn't box at that time. Right. You know what I'm saying? 80s and 90s. And
I mean, boxing, they were boxing. It just was,
No.
It wasn't really looked at something that women could do. There was someone sneaking around trying to get it done.
We're in Philadelphia. Let me put it this way, and I've said it's not being disrespectful, but women, look, even with men, you did not go to the boxing gym at that time unless you were going to fight. It's not like that today. You can go to the gym.
The women had to fight the men. Yeah, if you were going to the gym at those times, I mean, like there's some women being inducted in the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame.
That was in the 80s, Christy Martin and them. But if you look at the
time, even before that, Shelley Williams, for instance, was a little bit before that, and so they were there, but they still it wasn't even legal for a lot of women to be boxing.
Right. So, but my point being, so I'm trying to make with that is, at that time, you have to understand you have young men that are going there that are trying to either get themselves together or to find a way. So to answer your question, when that comes about, your trainer was really the most important person in the gym. If you had a man that actually cared, then your chances of doing something with your career or your life was going to be good. If you just had a trainer that came in and, like in the beginning, when Frank was like, I want to build a champ, then what happens is, if you're a kid that maybe may not be that good, but your trainer's only looking for the champ, they're not going to work with you for so long. They're going to try to find someone else. They go, oh, this kid here, he's got it. Let's focus more on him. That gym wasn't like that. Everybody was able to come in there and work out. But that's why we had what we call the dog meat section, and then the other section. If you wanted to be kept in the dog meat section, that's where you were going to keep your level at. If you wanted to move up, then you knew you had to really put in some work. And embodiment is really the trainer. Especially at a young age and amateurs, it's a little different now because guys have trainers, they have
nutritionists,
conditioners, food, nutritionists, people that, whatever. But when I grew up, you had one guy, and that man was your trainer, and you had to believe in him. And the thing about it is, it was like Frank Taylor was the guy that would talk to you with a calm voice. Tucci was the one that would be, like I'll share a story with you. In one of my sparring matches one time, I was sparring a guy and I hit the guy with a hook and knocked him down, pretty much knocked him out. The end of the sparring session. Now I'm 13, 14 years old. So when I knocked the kid down out and he's down the days, I go, I say, I'm sorry, man. Sorry about that. Well, Tucci slapped the shit out of me.
Like you can't.
He did. He slapped me right upside my headgear and said, "Don't you ever say sorry. That's what you're in here for." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And he didn't mean nothing by it, but it's pretty much to get it instilled in your head. This is what this is about. You know what I mean?
Because hey, it could have been you. It could have been me. You on the run. Yeah.
But if you don't have a trainer or someone that is there and at the end says, "Look, it ain't personal, but this is what this is about," then as a young man or a woman now, you're not going to feel that. You're not going to feel there's any connection there, and you're just going to feel like you're there. And so you saw the documentary, even with these guys, with each and every one of these guys, that at some point in their life took either the right turn or the wrong turn. They all go, they wish they would have listened, and they talk about what Tucci and Frank instilled in them. You don't hear that much. You don't hear that anymore.
That's life, right? You live a little bit and you realize, that's life, right? You live a little bit and you're like, dang, man, if I had done that when the information was available to me, like if Woody had gone straight to the police, these things never would have happened.
Right. But, and that's what makes it so powerful, because I told people in the beginning, when I did the first interview, which was Frank, you don't know what you have. Yeah. You say, I want to do a documentary. You don't know what you have, especially if you're a guy who hasn't seen these guys for 30 and 20 years. And when I interviewed Frank, and I said, he started talking, and on that part, when he almost was crying in the documentary, when I finished, I said to my producer, my other guy, the guy that went in with my executive producer, I said, man, we got something. I said, we got something. Yeah, that's why that was the moment. I said, we got something. And I said it because when I talked to him on the phone and asked him, could I do the documentary? He said to me, Dannon, I always felt there was a story there, but I didn't know how to get it out. And a lot of people in the city are like that, or around the country. We're in Hollywood. We understand. Okay, get a piece of paper, pen, start writing, get some connections, get some camera. Right. But you leave LA, people don't know how to put things together. Yeah, and they don't know it's right. So
they've never seen it, so can't even imagine like where you start to do something like that.
So after that interview, the next guy was Michael Wells, because I had interviews. The first time I did 13 interviews in a week, in 4 days. Each guy had their time. So only 3 would be there at a time. And Mike was the next one. And when Mike, even though it's not in the documentary, he started talking about his home life, he started tearing up. And so once we did those interviews the first day, we all said, wow, there's something there. We just said there's something there.
Mike Wells is tall for the division. Was he 6 feet, 126?
He was 6'2". 6'2", 6'2.5". Very tall, lean, very strong. Hard fighter, great puncher. Mike was the guy that everybody thought if anybody could beat Mark Breland in '84 to get to the Olympics, they thought Mike Wells was the one.
Mark Breland is so you have several prominent professional fighters throughout the documentary. Shane
Yes.
Mosley is interviewed. Mark Breland is interviewed. Russell Peltz, who's actually like a promoter and kind of
Yes.
a Philadelphia rainmaker in terms of local Philly shows. And but so Mark Breland, just to kind of level set, folks remember his name because he was one of the trainers for Deontay Wilder, and Deontay was saying some real wild stuff about Mark Breland. Mark was the one who actually physically threw in the towel in his second fight with Tyson Fury. Now, Breland was coming up at the same time as Mike Wells, but Breland had a different promoter. He had a lot more opportunities coming his way, and he was winning. And so the dream matchup was, Mark
but
and
that
Mike.
was in the amateurs. Well, see, the thing was, Mark Breland was at the time, he wasn't even the number one welterweight in the world as an amateur.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis Howard was out of St. Louis. And Lewis and Michael, if you look in the documentary, when I have a stat up, at one time, Mark Breland was ranked number 2. Mike Wells was ranked number 5.
Yeah.
Now, this is the height of amateur boxing in the age 83. So if you're ranked that high, you are somebody in this country. And so Mark was a guy who, like I said, Eric Wiley, one of the guys in it, he had been on overseas with Mike. And he said, with Mark. And he said he felt that Mike could beat Breland because he was just as strong, faster, and a better inside fighter. He said, but Breland was stretching him out too. Because Mark Breland was knocking out everybody. So it was just a situation where Breland had heard about it. And Mark, I've known Mark for a while. And I do want to say that Deontay Wilder is a good friend of mine. I've met him. And my buddy is training him now. Malik Scott is working with him now. So I was torn with that situation, that last one with the fight. But I understood why Breland did what he did. And I understand why Deontay was there.
I understand why Deontay was upset, and Breland was doing the job that you actually hire someone to do.
That's what you hire to win for myself. Right. But so Breland was the guy who everybody thought if anybody Mike could beat, it was Breland. But what happened was, the story, I won't give it away, but Mike found it right near the end, like right up to the point. He just, his mindset went a whole different way. And it's not a bad thing because he's still in that mindset. But, I think Mike looks back sometimes and he regrets that he didn't take that opportunity. You know what I mean?
Well, and it wasn't like, look, there wasn't a whole lot of money in amateur boxing either.
Exactly.
At a certain point, people had to make a decision, like, you want to eat hot food under a roof, or not. And they had to make those. And sometimes the money came in sideways.
Let me tell you something. If every fighter that you saw in that documentary had came up today, they would all be rich.
They be making some money, including you,
including me. Yeah. Including me. And
I ain't saying you ain't or you're not, but I'm saying you would have had opportunities in boxing because now there's organized promotions at the local level. It's not just like stuff happening on street corners.
And they're grabbing these kids, and they're grabbing these kids sooner. So promoters are looking at these guys, and it's okay. Boxing is not like college football or basketball. You can give a guy $5 and say, "Hey, man, here's something for your family." And it's not organized like that. So you can recruit a kid younger, and you're fighting anyway. So if you got the money to take care of a kid and help a kid get to a different level, they're going to do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And by Floyd, who everybody knows can get these top fighters because financially he can afford them. He's a proven champion, and he has the facilities to groom these kids. You know what I mean? So I look at these guys that box with me. If these guys would have had any type of opportunity like that, there's no telling where they could have done and what they could have been.
Now, so the documentary's out. You're entering in several festivals. It's available on Tubi. What do you want to happen next for it?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I felt, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Tubi because they gave me an opportunity first. I really felt that it could have been on HBO Showtime, and I really felt if this would have gotten in the hands of people that really, really would look at a film for what it is, I'm not saying it could have got an Oscar, but it sure enough could have got close. And I'm saying that because we don't have stories like this.
Well, your content is there. I mean, the
Yes.
stories and the content, it is absolutely there. For boxing heads, especially like if you're a boxing head, you know the stories out of Philadelphia.
Yes.
I mean, right now, the kid, of course, Bernard Hopkins is the biggest name. Kid that's setting it on fire right now at welterweight is Jerome Boots Ennis out of Philly. Let's talk about B-Hop. So Bernard Hopkins has a nickname, the Executioner. Yes. And in the film, you talk about this backstory. When did you meet Bernard? When did you hear of his nickname, and how did folks start to feel about his name being so close to the name of the gym?
Well, it's funny. When I was in college in Iowa, I started watching the pro fights, and I would see Bernard Hopkins fight, and I would hear the name, the Executioner. And I had no problem. But I kept saying, well, maybe he got the name from our gym, but it was no issue. It really wasn't a problem in terms of me. Then I met Bernard Hopkins twice. I know people in his camp, and B-Hop has always been cool and nice to me. So the funny thing, and I want to put this on record, the funny thing about this situation with the doc is I called his people. I called one of his main people early, before I even started writing the documentary, and said, look, I'm gonna do this documentary, and I want to know if you can help me get Bernard Hopkins. I want to interview. And they gave me the runaround. They just did not. I don't know if even Bernard knew I was trying
to. Did they say we'll see, we'll get back to you, or did
they told me to write a letter, they sent an email of what they wanted, and I did it. And if everything keeps in, that letter should be in that email address. So they never got back in touch with me. I will not say the person's name. I don't think that's important to put anybody on blast, but it was somebody very close to him. So they never did it. So I said, okay. So I started writing the doc. Now, I go to Philadelphia in January of 2018. I get in touch. I get a name of someone else that's very close to him. I call this gentleman. Look, I want to know if I can get an interview with B-Hop. Because now we're doing interviews. We're doing interviews with the fighters. And again, years going by in the 80s and part of the 90s, you would see Bernard Hopkins come into the ring, having the mask, putting the X up there, all of that. And I'm like, okay, nope.
Let's talk about the actual branding. There are some similarities. Did the gym start just before B-Hop? Was it happening at the same time? Had you been hearing about him?
We were, as you saw in the documentary, as the main guy, Frank Taylor, he said he had no problem with Bernard using the name. The problem
the gym was there before Bernard had actually made it 10 years prior.
10 years before Bernard even started boxing. Because you got to remember, Bernard went to jail. Bernard was in prison for 4 or 5 years for strong arm robbery.
Do you feel like he knew?
Out. Excuse me?
Was he aware of the gym? You feel like he was definitely aware of the gym?
Well, the reason he's aware is because he fought Mike Wells twice in the amateurs, and Mike beat him twice. So we beat Bernard Hopkins in the amateurs.
Okay.
And it's in the doc. So anyway, I come to LA. I'm back in LA. I find the other person close to him. I call him. I said, look, I really want to get an interview. Can I interview you about Bernard? I've been trying to get him, blah, blah, blah. They said, yeah. When we was in Philadelphia, he said that we can come and meet with him. Well, not with Bernard, but with this person. We went, we loaded up the cameras, we get an Uber, we go over there, not far from Broad Street, downtown where we're staying. We get there and the guy is gone.
Oh.
So we're like, okay, so we done got blown off twice. I tried one more time out here in Los Angeles. Called the dude up. He's out here working with a fighter. I get in touch with him. I talk to him. Hey, can I interview? Yeah, you can get, I'll talk to you about it. Blew me off. So after 3 tries, I was like, it is what it is.
Listen, I mean, the story's strong enough. You absolutely didn't need him in it.
Well, no,
and I don't want to cut you off. Layer.
Let me say this real quick. This is very important for your fan base, the people who are going to see this interview. I had people look at my documentary, The Rough Cut. Now, if you notice in the documentary when I said it, and I did do it this way, I waited till I got to the end of each person's interview and said, what do you feel about Bernard using the name? Because I did not want anybody to start that off with that type of energy.
Mm-hmm. It's no shade. It's just something
no,
that
it's
happened.
no shade at all. But I had people who told me, you should start the documentary off like that. And I said to myself, nope, because I don't want people to think my documentary is about the name. It's about these two men who saved us, myself included, from the streets of Philadelphia. But I think it's important for people to know that the executioners were there 10 years before Bernard started fighting, and we beat him twice in the amateurs. My boy beat him, and like my man said, in the amateurs. And if he went pro, he felt like he would have beat him in the pros too. So it's no beef. It is what it is. And if the truth is beef, then there it is. But it is what it's now.
Bernard's going to go down as, he's one of the best
ever
to do it. Like, ain't nobody going to squibble about it.
Yeah, but you have to remember this. You have to remember this. And people should remember this. Whatever you do right now, your business, how would you feel if someone came up, took that name, they got bigger than you, and then you were like, wait a minute, but I used to do this. This was me. You would feel some kind of way.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, these ain't the interview was beautiful. They did a great job. These still street dudes, but they got their life turned around.
Right. They ain't trying to like talk to the police no more, but these are men who feel some kind of way and would like to at least like have their side of the story told about it. And they did.
Why they said yes. So being PC correct is not, and that's why if you saw how I interviewed them, and which I want to say something to you, I think what was very unique about the documentary was this. If you notice, I did not interview any of the guys together.
Mm-hmm.
Most team documentaries, football, basketball, you'll have 5 or 6 of the guys together and they'll be talking about what happened during their careers, whatever. And that's how the documentary is. I purposely did not want all of them together at all. There was only one group that was interviewed together. That was the Clark brothers, because they were brothers. But everybody else separately. And that was because I know as a man, you're not going to give your emotions. You're not going to cry. You're not going to shed a tear. You're not going to tell the truth when you got another dude or 2 other dudes in here with you, because your ego pops in and you're not going to give it up. And that's why,
especially not men who've been boxing. Like you know, it's a different type of individual who spends their time getting punched in the face. And
boxing is an individual sport. It's an individual sport.
Ultimately, you got to go in, with your own shield, and that is it. So let's fast forward a little bit to current day boxing. Canelo Alvarez just fought in Texas. There were 73,000, I think 129 fans in attendance. And Canelo seems to be a wrecking ball right now. But you are a southpaw who can also fight orthodox. There's another man who kind of trades with Canelo on the pound for pound #1, and that's Terence Crawford. In your day, next man up. Everybody fought. You would make your climb, and whoever was like the next one next to you would fight. Not happening nowadays. We got conversations about the other side of the street, wrong side of the street. What are your feelings about Terence Crawford and kind of how he's been shut out, really, of that welterweight conversation, because most of the welterweights are fighting for another promotion?
Well, like I told somebody, I think the problem with it, first of all, Terence Crawford is tough. He's very good. Canelo's tough. I got in trouble. Let me take it back. Not trouble, but a lot of people got upset with me because I said I didn't feel he was fighting a lot of top quality fighters. These last 5, 6 fights have been guys that he's pretty much ran through. Outside of Danny Jacobs, and I thought Danny Jacobs could have gave him a better battle. A lot of people felt Triple G beat him the first time. Okay, so I caught some heat from the Latin people. Oh, you're racist. I ain't got nothing to do with race. Now, the problem with Crawford is this. This is what people don't want to be honest with, I believe. You got Earl Spence. Errol Spence is the champ. Okay.
Well, he got one belt, right? Terence got another belt.
But he's got a belt. You got Crawford. Crawford is with Bob Arum. A lot of people don't want to deal with Bob Arum. So the question is this: if Crawford wins the title, then those belts are over there with Top Rank. So as you know, it's all politics. So why would you give if Crawford was with PBC? Trust me, he would be getting the top fight. He'd be getting the fights.
But you have Deontay Wilder, who PBC fighter, fought Tyson Fury, who is a top ranked fighter. You know, well, he's got the shared promotion between Warren and Bob Arum, and they made that happen. And a lot of people were kind of anticipating seeing at least a conversation happening between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, given that, you know, the two promotions had put on this huge event.
Again, I don't believe it has nothing to do with the fear. I don't know if Crawford is big enough. Right. I don't know if Crawford is big enough for Canelo per se. And I think to me, the number one guy is Errol Spence. That's the number one guy.
Errol Spence is on. So you put Spence on your pound for pound ahead of Canelo?
Yeah.
And Terence Crawford? Damn,
yes.
You bugging. You bugging.
I might be bugging, but one thing I know, I'm gonna tell you this. I know boxing. And it ain't got nothing to do with my documentary. Mm-hmm. The only time I've ever bet and lost is when I bet with my heart. When I bet against Tyson, against Holyfield, because Holyfield was actually a better boxer and more powerful, I lost. But I don't lose. Let me say something. I'm not knocking Canelo. I'm not. And I'm not knocking Crawford. But let me tell you the difference between them and Spence. Comes to technically, Errol Spence is the most technical sound boxer. He's not the flashy one. Wear you down. He's the first guy to ever really wear down. So you heard it here. Until someone beats that kid, I think he's the number one.
Well, he's going to have to fight. But Errol also is going to have to fight Terence Crawford to actually really prove it. I think until that fight happens, it's just, you know, these are just like opinion conversations. Like, is Errol, we don't know. If Errol Spence is not going to fight Terence Crawford, if we see him fighting like the number 6 or 7 welterweight, then we're just not going to know. And Dannon is frozen. I don't know. I do know you're frozen about it. Let's see. I'm gonna wait for you. You may have to leave the stream and come back. Yeah, let me tag you on the other. Let's see. You frozen dog. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, come back in. So Dannon will be back in just a second. So we is too many people. It's just me. I've been talking with Dannon Green, who is the producer, director, and writer of a documentary called The Executioners. And The Executioners is about an hour and a half long, a little over 90 minutes, and it's available on Tubi, Tubi, and it's an app, any smart device that you got, your cell phone, your iPad. I don't know, what's the the Microsoft version of it, the Surface or something or another, I don't know, and or your Roku Fire Stick, all of them, you can watch it. And for boxing heads, true boxing heads who understand kind of the story of Philadelphia boxing and how prominent it is factored on the landscape of boxing, not just domestically, but also internationally. This film is a real treat for you. And if you're not a boxing head and you want to just sit down and watch a good story, The Executioners is definitely that I would advise you to invest your time in. And so I've hit Dannon back to see if he can come back in. And I believe 1 second.
I don't know what happened.
5, 4, 3, there you go. Hey, internet. The internet internets be bugging sometimes, you know. They be hating. These streams be hating.
Yeah. Okay. So you were saying about he would have to fight somebody?
I think he would have to. I think we need to see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford to really say, you know, if Spence is the best in that crop in his generation of welterweights. Other than that, it's kind of like, you know, it's people with their.
All right, let me ask you this question. I'm gonna ask you this question because I feel a little friction.
Anytime somebody say, "Let me ask you this," I always hear Chris Rock in my head. You know that joke? Let me ask you this. Can you kick my ass?
You can. I'm a comedian, so you can act like you heard Chris Rock ask. Let me ask you something. Now, Crawford, when he fought Brooks, Kyle Brooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that fight goes 2 more rounds, his eye is shut.
Well, you know, and
yes
I
or no?
think so.
Yes or no?
Possibly. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to go 2 more rounds. So Brooks got caught.
It did not go 2 more rounds.
That's the thing. I don't think it was ever going to go. It was like no if to me. I don't think it ever was.
I like Crawford. First of all 3 of them are a beast.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Crawford is fought. But let me put it this way. I was at the Errol Spence, Sean Porter fight.
Mm-hmm.
I was there at the Staples Center.
And Sean Porter is a dog.
And he's a dog, but Errol Spence proved how much of a dog he is because he fought Sean Porter's fight. He did not box. He stayed.
It was a fight.
I was at that fight.
He fought on the inside.
Yes, and that's not his. And he fought the whole fight like that. He fought his fight. And let me tell you, I don't know what round it was.
Derek James knew what they had. Derek James knew that. I mean, you talked about Errol Spence and him being so technically sound. Derek James knew that they were going to have that uppercut available to them as long as he stayed patient. But he had to be willing to bang.
Whether he knew or not. But let me say something. Whether he knew or not, you can have the uppercut still available to you without fighting the person's fight.
Right. But
so they had nothing. They had nothing to do with nothing. That he wanted to prove that he was not going to fight Sean Porter's fight and beat him at his fight. I don't have any stake in any one of these dudes, but the eye test tells me right now that Errol Spence is the number 1 dude. Canelo I like, but I'm going to tell you what Canelo issues are. Canelo, under serious fighters, when he gets in there with them toughs, he starts getting tired after 6 or 7 rounds. For some reason, he does not have the best conditioning, but he wears these dudes down. But look at his last 4 fights.
See any difference in him recently? Well, I mean, he doesn't.
Look at his fights.
Triple G's the only one who took him the distance. I mean, so it's hard to say. Like,
let me ask you
Triple G's the only one who took him the distance.
Come on, after Triple G, who has he really fought? Be honest with me.
Well, I mean, listen, Billy Joe Saunders was a formidable opponent. He dispatched of him, but he was a formidable opponent, undefeated, a ton of amateur fights, and, took a risk coming over here. If I bet with my own money, only one time have I bet with my own money, and I actually won. It was this dude. Let me see. Teofimo Lopez, he's down here. Only time I was convinced that he was going to beat Lomachenko. And Mama got a new pair of shoes. So, all
I will say is this. Just remember this conversation. I want you to remember this conversation. and I'm saying that because
it's on tape. So
yeah, I don't want anyone. And the Latin people when you go against their guys, it's always racist.
It's the people. You can't be talking about
right. But I'm just telling you from the gut. I'm telling you, I have been around some of the best trainers, fighters in the world. I'm telling you. And I'm talking about guys from Frankie Lyles to Nunn to James. I mean, guys I've watched these dudes. And I'm telling you, I've only been wrong a couple times. That's when I bet with my heart. And I'm telling you right now, if you put if Canelo gets in there, I truly believe with a strong, sound fighter, it's going to be a different situation. I even this guy here, we fought.
Well, so there's
Coming
two
around his
fighters
eyes.
at 168. There's two right now at 168.
The
I mean, well, there's
Charlo brothers.
three. There's
The
three. So
Charlo
you
brothers.
got Big Charlo. You also David Benavidez is out there. He's not going to fight Demetrius Andre. That's not going to happen. It looks like it's going to be.
Why would he fight Andre?
Well, why? Because it's not something that's going to benefit him monetarily. You know, at this
Because
point,
it's a dangerous fight.
You have to listen. I think they're all dangerous fights, all of them. I mean, Caleb Plant is a dangerous fight. Caleb Plant is a mover. Canelo has some trouble with movers. You talk about being technically sound. Caleb's that dude.
How about I ask you this question? Here's a better question for you, because you're the sports.
I'm the sports Nisa, goddammit.
Yes. Don't you think it's time? No, because I'd be putting words in your mouth. Let me do it from the law point. Do you think it's time for Canelo to be pressured to fight some of these tougher fighters? He passed on the Charlo brothers to the point where he gave up the title. They gave him some fake beautiful title out the sky so they wouldn't have to fight this dude. Now, if he beats one of them,
Big Charlo, yeah. I feel that way about all of boxing. I feel that way. Like, they need to be fighting, like the best needs to be fighting the best at every stinking division. Like, you know, we're sick of it. I mean, you go down, I want to see Jamel Herring fighting Oscar Valdez. I don't want to see Valdez actually bypass him, you know, and Shakur Stevenson is in that mix, but the fight to make at that weight is going to be Valdez and Herring for me. It's probably not going to happen. But though, yeah, I agree with you. But the fight I really want to see, Canelo Plant is going to be good, but David Benavidez, like, damn it, you know, he lost the strap on the scales. Otherwise, he would have to come see about him. Would absolutely have to see about him.
I think so too. But again, that guy's good. You give me one of them Charlo brothers, you give me Errol Spence.
Rugged.
You give me those two, because I think he's too big for Crawford.
Yeah.
You give me one
too
of those.
big for Crawford, too big for Spence.
I don't think he's too big for Spence.
Errol's a big welterweight, but 168. You know,
I met Earl. I met Earl. See, here's the difference. The reason that I think Earl could get him was the same reason that I knew Mayweather was going to beat him. Because Mayweather wasn't as big as him.
He was a kid.
No. Don't you dare do that. Don't you dare do that.
Some kids. Look, yeah, he's not Canelo of today.
Listen, don't you dare turn my dream of being on your show for what you're doing for me into a nightmare. Don't you dare do this to me.
Now listen, you know, Floyd
age has nothing to. Mayweather's been a.
I'm not talking about so much his actual age on his birth certificate. I'm talking about Canelo's like life experience in the ring.
He was 30-0. No.
Huge difference in terms of what he's experienced now.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now. I have a problem with you, but I'm going to let it go.
Look, listen, I ain't even got no shoes on. Like, you need to meet me outside?
Nope, because I know you do with that UFC, and I don't mess with that. I know you got some stuff to do. Nope. But I'm just saying. Look, I want everybody to know I like Canelo. I do. Age has nothing to do with it, because Mike Tyson was champ at 20, banging out everybody. Mayweather beat everybody. From, you know, people can say what they want about Floyd. Floyd fought everybody. Mm-hmm. And I'm tired of people saying, well, he didn't fight him at his prime. Well, Floyd is older than Manny. So who prime was who? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't want to hear none of that. Age has nothing to do with experience.
It has some things. Age and experience, absolutely. Because listen, 18-year-old, 27-year-old, you ain't got your grown man strength yet. Like, so
how old was Canelo? How old was Canelo when he fought Mayweather?
Was he 22?
23 years old.
He smells about like Similac, man. Like, you know, he's baby. Smacking him with Pampers.
Smack me with a pamper and put baby milk in my mouth. You old enough to fight. I don't want to hear that.
Right, but I mean, he's old enough to fight, but there is a difference between having your grown man's strength and, like, just understanding how to move in the ring. But listen,
But what about when Mayweather beat? What about when Mayweather beat them dudes? What about when Tyson beat those dudes? What about when Marvin Hagler, God rest his soul, fought them dudes? Look, there comes a point.
Fight. Different fight.
Let me tell you,
it's not a different fight if Canelo is like 5-6 years older. Fighting. I hate doing that. I hate doing revisionist.
I don't do that. That's why
they fought when they fought. They fought when they fought.
That's what I'm saying. So see, if you hate doing that, then you have to go back on what you just said, young lady. No.
But the fact is, like, he didn't have that marinade on him. It's true. It is true.
Look, if you hate doing that, what you just said with your own beautiful words, then that means they fought when they fought.
They fought when they fought.
You had to be ready. You didn't have to take the fight. Now, you took the fight for money, you did a good thing. But you didn't have to take the fight. When Floyd, let me tell you something. Not to change it on to Floyd. There was only 2 people I ever thought, actually 3 people I ever thought could be Floyd. There was only 3.
Was Mosley one of them?
Yes, I'm going to tell you now. I know 2 and met 1. Shane Mosley was 1 because he's a power puncher with speed. Mm-hmm. The other one was a very good friend of mine. Unfortunately, he got killed. Diego Corrales. Mm-hmm. When I knew Diego because I live around the corner from 10 Goose Boxing, where he was training under Joe Goose. Mm-hmm. Diego was the only other one, and that was a personal friendship thing. Like, hey, this is my guy.
Yeah.
And the other one was, you know what it is? Mm-hmm. Zab Judah. He was the only one because for the first 5 rounds, that's probably the most dangerous fighter out there at that weight with that power and speed that he had.
After the 6th round, though.
Yeah. No one else.
Yeah.
But
that's what makes Floyd that great is that he went in with all these dangerous fighters, and he still, came.
Let me tell you why Floyd Mayweather is. Let me tell you why he's great. Forget the fact that he had a daddy, uncle, and 2 uncles that were fought.
2 uncles.
But Floyd is the only fighter that I know that I've watched change his style in terms of preparation, in terms of going into the fight for that fighter. Mm-hmm. Most people fight every fight the same. When you fight everybody the same, someone's going to eventually get it. When he fought Medina, he really didn't lose the first fight. What's his name? Tony Speaks was the worst referee I ever saw in my life that night. He let every dirty punch, every dirty blow go. Mm-hmm. And that's why Floyd it was such a dangerous fight for him because you can't be a guy when he's throwing the right hand and behind the right hand comes the elbow.
Right.
You got to watch out for all of that. So I had always told people after he beat Diego, but I knew he was going to beat Mosley because he fought an older Mosley. And Pacquiao, I never even worried about the Pacquiao fight.
Well,
I already felt that the only guy that really could have gotten him at the age when they were both ready to go was Zab Judah. And I told Zab Judah. You have a
problem with Floyd now with this YouTuber fight that is.
Okay, I'm about to get racist right now, and not in a bad way. No, listen to what I'm saying.
What you getting racist for?
It's not because I don't want to seem like it's going to sound it. But he's letting these guys make money off him, and I'm quite sure there's some young cats out here that can really go that could win the fight for him.
Who could use some generational life-changing
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It has nothing. Look, the Paul guys. I'm not one of those older guys that I'm not a hater because I'm one of them dudes like this. I had a brother that was a hustler. God rest his soul. Get your money how you get your money. Now, how you get respected and get your money, that's on you. So, but here's the problem. No, I'm sorry, not the problem. Here's the issue. Why not take the fight if you Floyd? Floyd is not fighting now for less than $200 million.
Well, he's not just taking the fight; he's actually making the fight. That's a difference.
And he's going to
get offered to him.
And he's going to get over $200 million.
He's going to get a whole lot of.
Floyd don't come out the house unless there's $100 million in the bag on the table.
It's a whole lot of money. So, yeah, I think it's goofy.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna get my money for,
I'll
for
wait for you to. I'll wait for you.
they right. Look, they don't need Floyd don't need my money. But I'm gonna probably watch. They just not gonna get
Yeah.
my money.
And it's
Uh,
funny too because I was trying to get with Floyd on my project. I
mhm.
wanted him to back it. First of all, I really want to thank you for allowing me to express myself, talk loud. When I talk loud, I'm not mad. I just got a loud voice. Okay, or nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you because, like I told Brandon Bowden, nobody can make it without help.
Hmm.
Nobody can make it without help. And this documentary for me in boxing has been a passion. It saved my life. And when I did this documentary, I went to some big name people for help. Couldn't get it. And so for me to achieve the goal that I have achieved, I thank God for allowing me to stay the path and get it. But I did try to speak with people. I couldn't get to Floyd, but I tried to because I wanted to have it where, sometimes when it's a shame when you got to meet people, you got to say, look, I don't need no money. I just need just help. I mean, I done did everything. I done, like you said, directed it, narrated it, helped edit it. I scored it, the music, all of that. You know what I mean? So, but you can't make it without help. So I just really want to thank you. I want to, just so that I didn't get a chance to I don't want to make sure I didn't get a chance to say that to you. I thank you because you're helping me. So I appreciate it.
Not a problem. I mean, listen, we have people on who we think are compelling and have something to lend to the conversation. And so it's been, a great conversation and definitely appreciate your time. Want to give a shout out to Mr. Brandon Boland and the Nidus crew.
Yes.
Because Brandon has been telling this story in different iterations as the project has been progressing. And I wouldn't have known about it had it not been for Brandon Boland and
Yes.
the type of friend that he is.
Big shout out to Brandon. I've known Brandon over 20 years. When we were doing comedy back, he used to have a room in LA called the Dark Room, which was actually a great room. It wound up turning into the Comedy Union. But Brandon and I have been friends for a long time. Now, a backstory with Brandon, a little bit of story history, and the story, up to date is Brandon, as you know, is passionate about things. So when he says something, whether it's politics or something, he'll start cursing. So I used to joke with him and say, "Look, I'm not going to call into your show because you're not cursing me out, okay?"
Well, it ain't real unless he drop a motherfucker on it. So.
Right. So I'm like, look, my opinion may be different than your opinion, blah blah blah. But one thing I would say, when I did tell him about this documentary, he was very, very intrigued by it. I think he also was, like other people, very the fact that I was able to go out. I took my money and
You did
and,
the
and
thing.
completed the project. So I think that was part of it. And then when I told him the story, he said, "Look, man," he interviewed me like I've talked about this project at least 3 times on his show. And I actually was having anxieties because it was supposed to be out in February, but they kept saying this wasn't right or this wasn't right, and everything was right. But they said my closed caption, then my house, which is the art piece, it was a whole bunch of stuff, and I started getting anxiety. And he interviewed me each time. He's like, "Yo, Dan, hey, I look forward to it. Let me know." So when it came out last week, and it's doing very, very well so far. It's doing very well.
I've seen it 3 times myself. So
you kidding? Can you give me 3? Hey, can you give? Wait, let me ask you a question. Why did you watch it 3 times, and what did it do for you?
So the first time I watched it, because I was curious about it, I'd heard about it for about a year, definitely wanted to see it. But then when I extended the invitation, there were some stories that I, wanted to make sure that I understood a little bit better. So, research and being prepared. But I'm a boxing head. And I was fascinated by these stories. Each time I kind of leaned in more to a different story. And I think that is actually the cool part about the Executioners is that each time you watch it, there's another story that you become invested in. And that's definitely what happened to me. So, well.
Now, I asked you this question because you are a woman. And when I showed this documentary a little earlier in the stage to women, they were like, "Well, why would a woman want to watch this?" This is like early in the cuts. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
5 minutes here.
It transcends gender. I mean, if you're somebody
Yes,
who's interested in the human story,
human stories. If you
you
have
know,
a son, correct?
I have a little girl and a little boy, but like shit, I'm not like a cartoon character either. But like, we watched The Lion King.
No.
So
But what I'm saying is, you are in your child's life, and if you're, I don't want to assume you're married, but if you have a man in your life, he's in his son's life. But think about the story you just saw, when men did have somebody in their life, and they still took the wrong turn.
yep.
And women now in this day and age are raising a lot of the men.
Hmm.
So this is why I feel a story like this is. That's why I asked you. It's just important for women to watch, and I have gotten some of my best reviews from women
Hmm.
because the
Listen, if you
guys are
want
giving me
something
great
done,
reviews
ask the
too.
women to do it. Yeah.
Excuse me.
If you want something done, get the women to
Well,
do it.
not always. I'm not going to go there now, but a
Most
lot
of
of
the
times,
time. Okay.
yes.
Yes,
I,
most of the time.
you know,
But no,
I'm
you're
not. Hey,
right.
I'm not scared of y'all. I'll say what it is. But
Right.
in this
That's
time,
okay.
the women have been very, very kind to me, and
You got to be
I'm
scared.
telling you, if you cannot see the emotional stories and see your own life in this documentary, I don't know what you can see.
And
You
I
know,
think for me as a mother, my son is in martial arts. We started him at 4. He's 8 now. I hope he continues throughout his lifetime because I feel like combat sports, especially for young boys, gives you a level of confidence to kind of be in spaces, not because you need to be physical. He's a little kid. He's a little guy. He's going to be small. I'm like, you either got to be funny or know how to fight. So he
wait a
ain't
minute,
that funny.
what are you trying to
He ain't
say
that
about
funny.
me? What are you
And he
trying to
ain't
say?
that
No, I'm
funny.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm saying
But
he ain't that funny.
let
But
me
as
say
a
something.
man, you need to have confidence to go into certain spaces.
But
And
see,
combat
as a woman,
sports.
but as a mom, you're not that. You're not some of these typical mothers where, oh no, I don't want to get hit. No, you're like, look, you're gonna be small, and I want to make sure you're good.
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. Like somebody gonna try you. You a nice kid, you a good looking kid, and you small. Somebody is going to try you. And you just need to be prepared for that. It's just real life, man. Listen, I'm 5 feet, but I'm 6'11" on the inside.
Well, you
So
look taller here, so you don't look small. You look like you're about
I'm
five
six
seven
eleven.
in length.
Look, I'm standing on a book.
Oh, okay. But no, but you know what's funny is boxing for me, and I had street fights, but when I got to start boxing, I only had street fights outside of when I started boxing, and I
You
won
ain't
all
got to.
three.
You ain't got
I
to
won all
at that
three,
point.
but I handled myself differently.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'll walk away. Danny, you ain't nothing. You know, but now I ain't fighting nobody now anyway. Man, I'll buy you a beer before I fight you now. I'm like,
Yeah.
look, man, here, let's have a drink together. Yeah, you want a dinner? I mean, I ain't trying to fight nobody now.
Right.
But even then, it was a situation where I would say, like, is it worth me really getting with you? Now I still
Sure.
train. I train a lot. I train two
Yeah.
to three times a week.
Yeah.
My weight's good. And now people say, why do you do that? I said, just in case somebody slipped, and I got to go ahead and let them know.
Listen, just in case there's the joke to it, I actually sleep with my fists balled up. I don't know why. I just have always done that. And
Wow,
like I've
for real?
always said, just in case a motherfucker would. That's why.
Okay, Robin Harris. Okay.
That's why.
But no, but it's a great sport, and um, I know that it's been a very big part of my life. I would have never ever dreamed the first day that I walked into the executioner's
Hmm.
gym that one day I would have wrote a story about him. It never ever crossed my mind,
Well,
and
I'm glad that you did.
yeah,
It's brought some joy to me, and I think it's going to bring joy to a lot of other people. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat. Come back.
thank
Definitely
you.
want to follow your journey. I keep saying we, like, we is too many people. Me, I've had the pleasure to talk with Dannon Green, who is the producer, director, and writer of The Executioners. I want y'all to go check it out. It's on Tubi. You can download it wherever you got something smart, whether it's your phone, whatever. Um, Dan, and you're also a trainer. Tell some folks where they can find you.
You can find me on she got on me, so I'm about to start soon, but because I don't tweet. But you can find me on Instagram at Dannon Green 66. Dannon, Dannon Green, Green, the two letters, number 66, or on Facebook under Dannon Green. And then I am going to start tweeting. And yes, you can find the executioner. It should be plural at the end of this week because they messed up on Tubi. But you can find it on Tubi TV. It's free. Free TV. There are commercials in it. It's just like watching commercials. There's commercials in it, which makes it a little long. That's the only reason it's a little long, because the commercials are in there.
Like an hour and like 36 minutes. Like,
yeah. People, but I had, there was a couple of people that just, it was so long. Okay.
Come on now.
But it was free. And I just want to thank you. But I want to tell the audience, please look at this documentary and really, really understand that everybody's life at some point is in this documentary. Whether you're a man or a woman, everybody's life goes through this. And if we had more people like Marvin Tucci Gordon and Frank Taylor, I promise you we wouldn't lose so many boys to the street. We wouldn't. So I want to thank those two men for saving my life. And I also want to give a shout out to Philadelphia, because I truly believe that there is no better city in the world to get an understanding about life than Philadelphia. You're either going to make it or you're not. You're either going to get eat up or you're going to get through it. And it's a tough city. But the people, it's a tough city of people that mean well. So I just really, really want to give a shout out to Philadelphia. And I want to thank you and your streaming and your company and your show for having me on here. This was a real big thing for me. This was very big.
We definitely appreciate you. Hey, I'm Cassandra Cousineau, your girl, the Sportsnista, and this has been Levels. We will be back on Wednesday with Jeremy Long, and then on Thursday with Ramblin' Ralph Velez. Ralph is out in these streets. Y'all might see him if you're in Vegas. He out there with Floyd right now. Actually, they're filming the 24/7 for the fight that he's going to have with Logan Paul. So I appreciate y'all. Keep them damn babies out the street. Bye.